we have seen previously, John Jones, Floyd Collins, all of them have the same incident. They enter the narrow passage, then they realize that they have come to the wrong place, and by the time they are able to correct their mistake, they get late. And today's story revolves around this guy. Exactly the same thing happens with Donald Whitner, but they enter for a good purpose. He had gone inside to teach the kids. I know this sounds weird, but unfortunately, he was stuck in the cave for 81 hours in an upside-down position at a 30-degree angle. All his efforts to escape had failed. Even the multiple rescue team was not able to help him. Tragically, Donald's 2 children also went inside the cave, and as soon as he died, he was looking at his loved ones. And then we see a final emotional moment. So, hello everyone, and you are watching Story Rush, 1982. There is a town in New Jersey, USA, Millstone Township, which is fully open and quite beautiful too. BSA, Boy Scout of America. This is an organization that mainly focuses on the development of youth, especially for outdoor activities. They are taught different skill sets, like there are adventurous programs for them and all that. 27th of March in BSA, which has 12 scouts, basically 12 kids. And today, their plan is to visit the adventurous swamp Crooked Cave, which is a little far from here, and the kids have to experience the claustrophobic conditions of the cave. And for this work, Scoutmaster Jim Abbey is assigned to them as a team leader. But for some reason, he was sick today, and instead of him, 48-year-old Donald Whitner is going to lead this group. Although Donald does not have much experience in caving, but he has the experience of working as a sergeant in the police service for 22 years. And the kids also see him as their father figure, so they have no problem in changing the team leader. Interestingly, both their kids, Christopher and Roger, are also included in the 12 kids for the adventure. Saturday, 2 p.m. Everyone enters the cave. The opening of the cave is 16 inches high and 28 inches wide, which is quite low. And that's why everyone is crawling forward on their knees. And you know, there is an interesting thing about this cave among the locals. They believe that if there are any unexpected extreme things in the town, like war type of something, then it will be a waste place for them to hide. Anyway, Donald is walking in the front in the passage, and behind him are his 2 kids and the rest of the escorts. And because Donald is the biggest in size, so if he can cross the front passage, then it will be likely that all the kids behind him will easily cross the passage. But this cave is as simple as it looks, and as safe as it seems for everyone. It is exactly the opposite of that. Because this is not a cave, but this is a whole cave system, made up of 7 different caves, and in a complex way, everyone is interconnected. And that's why this is the longest cave in New Jersey. The surface of the cave is always cold, and it is also a little wet. And this is what creates a problem for everyone ahead. Everyone has completed the long passage, and there is a big chamber in front of them, 8 by 11 feet. That means everyone can easily stand here and can relax. But the problem starts from here, because there are multiple ways to go to the deeper section ahead. There are crevices, and as I said, they came here for the first time, so no one actually knew which way to go ahead. Which way is so narrow, which way can end, and which way will connect to the other cave ahead. No one had any idea. Some kids are excited for this, and some kids are nervous too, for obvious claustrophobic reasons. But you know, Donald has another hidden intention to come here, about which no one has any idea. They want to go to the other cave from this cave route, where both the caves are connected to each other, and they want to get out of its entrance. And for this, they are very passionate too. Till now, all the kids go to different parts of the cave to explore by themselves. But they should not do this. This is against the rules. Donald should end this adventure as soon as possible, otherwise it will be very difficult to handle the situation ahead. But before that, why don't they fulfill their wish? And they choose to go inside this east crevice. And they start moving forward inside this with Christopher and Roger, in search of another cave. Donald's height was 5 feet 11 inches and 72 kilograms, so we can say he was fairly thin. Slowly, that passage starts getting narrower, and Donald knew that this is going to happen, and he was ready to fight with its stress and suffocation. He was pushing himself forward in the passage. But then a point comes where the space was 18 by 20 inches. Here, he could not use his hands. His hands were stuck in a useless position, which looked something like this. Still, they only used their feet to move forward. They had come 75 feet ahead from the main chamber, and they were sliding downwards in a 30-degree downward direction. There was smooth mud in the passage, because of which they slipped forward easily. It was so slippery that it was very difficult for them to control themselves. While slipping, they realized that the way ahead is over, and there is even more narrow space at the end. It was a small space of a keyhole shape, which was much tighter, and Donald Welchner was stuck in it. He was stuck in a 30-degree downward direction, and his shoulders and his hips were stuck in an awkward position. It was very difficult to move here, but it was not a big deal for Donald, because he could have swung and come back. Right. But then a big problem comes here. A piece of stone was stuck on it, and it falls on his thigh. Donald starts screaming loudly. He was scared. He calls out to his two children in panic and asks them to come closer. So basically the situation was like this. Donald was stuck like this. His hands were stuck in a useless position, and the space was so tight that it was impossible to release his hands. Plus, that place was completely dark and slippery, and he was in a 30-degree downward direction. And the biggest problem, a piece of stone fell on his thigh. For the first time, his legs were visible with great difficulty, and when Christopher somehow pulls Donald's legs from behind, so Donald's body comes back a little, but the stone starts rolling on his thigh, and that space becomes tighter. After multiple attempts, he needed some experience, so Donald says to Christopher, "You now call the squad master, Jim. He is an experienced caver, and I will definitely get out of his help. Until then, I try to relax here. I will try to breathe as little as possible, so that the oxygen does not run out." Jim had a fever, but still, he comes here for rescue. And that passage was so tight that it took him more than 2 hours to come to Donald. After coming, Jim was facing the same issue. Donald's legs were not properly visible, but somehow he ties the rope in his legs and tries to pull it with the help of the rope. Donald gets up a little, and again that stone rolls behind, and that space becomes tighter. Jim was not able to get a proper grip, and the rope is released from his hand. Donald goes back sliding in the crevice, and he also gets hurt. It was not such a big place where anything could be handled freely. After trying for hours, after applying many methods, Jim realizes that he should get out, and now he needs professional help. Till this time, 2 rescue teams reach the place: Blue Ridge Rescue Squad and NCRC Rescue Team. Until now, Donald was also talking a little bit. He was basically feeling cold, because the surface inside was very cold, and he was also feeling very thirsty. To keep Donald warm, rescuers try numerous things. Like they touch a hot water bottle in Donald's feet. They try to warm his feet with a gel pack. Electric heater is used, because if he continues to suffer from cold like this, then he will get hypothermia. Donald was completely immobilized. He was physically trapped in every way possible, but he was also super confident after seeing professional help that he will definitely get out of here. But Donald did not find things as easy as he thought. The situation was worse than that. After multiple attempts of rescuers failed, they had to be a little creative now. They looked for another way to the cave, which was connecting to Donald's way. But that passage was very narrow, and they needed a person who is thin, who can easily squeeze inside. And they also have experience in caving. 25 years old Lynn Taylor. She was an experienced caver and was also a member of NCRC Rescue Team. And she was best for this situation because her height was just 5 feet and weight was just 39 kilograms. She used her tiny frame. And fortunately, she reaches that area where Donald's caves were connecting. But the way ahead was closed. She could not go so close to Donald. For this, it was possible to reach Donald just 2 feet away. All the hard work was in vain, and time was wasted separately. Donald's condition was getting worse and worse, but unfortunately, the rescuer had no option to deliver food and nourishment. There was no option to deliver Donald's belongings. The rescuers did everything they could in the night, but they still didn't have a plan to get Donald out. They had to try something different. It had been 16 hours since Donald was trapped, and it was 6 in the morning on Sunday. The rescuers started drilling from above. They were drilling with the hope that at least he would reach Donald through the pipe, and they would be given food and water. The whole day ends while drilling, and they were not even sure if the place where they were drilling was the right place or not. At 6 in the evening, they realized that the place where they were drilling was the wrong place. They were drilling 12 feet away from Donald, but they didn't stop drilling. They started drilling laterally. The whole night was over, and now it was 6 in the evening on Monday. But they still didn't have a plan to get Donald out. It's incredible for Donald to stay in this position for 52 hours without food or water. Staying in an upside-down position has its own limitations. The heart had to put a lot of effort to circulate blood in the whole body. Things were getting difficult for him every minute when he was in this position, and he slowly started believing that he would never see his family again. The temperature inside the cave had reached 14 degrees Celsius, and it was a serious challenge for the rescuers to keep the environment warm. They used a heat pump to send the hot air to Donald, and this was the last thing that the rescuers were doing for Donald. Otherwise, they didn't have any serious plan, and because Donald's body was stuck in the cave surface for a long time, unfortunately, this heat pump was not working well. The risk of hypothermia was greatly increased. While drilling laterally, they came very close to Donald, but a hard stone comes in front of him, and now it was impossible to drill ahead of it. And finally, this plan also fails. Around 1 o'clock at night, the rescuers were getting some grunting response from Donald. Maybe he wanted to say something, but he was not able to say anything clearly. I think now was his last time. Finally, a nurse is sent to the tunnel with a Doppler machine and EKG to find out Donald's condition, but he only had access to Donald's legs, so he was not able to find out if Donald was alive or not, but he was able to check the temperature of Donald's body, which was just below 80 degrees, less than normal 98.6 Fahrenheit. For 100% confirmation, a specialist goes inside, and he confirms that Donald Weltner is now dead. His death was due to hypothermia, due to being stuck in the cold surface for a long time. On 30th March, Tuesday night at 3 o'clock, finally after surviving for 61 hours, Donald is officially declared dead. Still, the rescue team's work was not over yet. They had to get Donald out, whether he is alive or not. To do this, they used their last option. They blast the cave with small dynamites. And yes, at 11:40 o'clock, they officially recovered Donald's body. Although, because of the dynamite, Donald got a deep wound, but the body does not feel pain. 150 people worked on this rescue mission for 80 hours, and finally, this mission fails. And as usual, the cave is closed forever, and this cave makes it accessible for limited and experienced people. Imagine, where did this start from? By giving cave teaching to children, by making them daring. And where does it end? At the loss of a human being. I think taking children inside the cave and giving them learning is a very risky concept. I don't know who is making such programs, and I don't think it was necessary to take children inside and make them daring. In fact, it was necessary to teach them the drawbacks and good judgments of the cave. Everyone should know their limits. Going in tight passages and forcing yourself to go in narrow passages is of course heroic. But the one who goes inside, it is not necessary that he comes out. Alright then, let's end the video. And tell me in the comments, how did you like the video? And also subscribe.